These flats were built, I think, maybe it's 8 years or 9 years back. And they were built in front of me. And I've seen a nice place, a good place for everybody to live in. So now, as you can see, it is right now. It breaks my heart, my brother, because now it shows that how we live in our society, you see, my brother. We want to break things that are nice and the things that are being built for us to live in the better future.
Unfortunately, we have a huge problem in Gauteng. The various MECs just do not have not and do not have a plan. And until they have a plan in place, they're not able to implement the plan. Now, the issue that you've raised, there's over 100 unfinished projects, that is provincial unfinished projects in Gauteng, where projects have been started and they have not been completed. And they stand empty and ultimately they get vandalized. But as you've indicated in discussions we've had before, there are many people who live in squalor who could be put into places that have been completed, and unfortunately there's no process or plan to enable them to do that. So right now we have a situation where things are going from bad to worse. And when a question is put to the MEC and to the Premier, what are you going to do about this problem? The answer is a very simple one. We are busy with megacities.
On Wednesday, the police received reports that there was a group of protesters coming from the Tembisa side with an intention of illegally occupying the flats that we are standing at right now. The SAPS and their Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department counterparts quickly mobilized and came to this place with the intention of preventing those people from illegally occupying these buildings. So in the process, a group of the group, so to speak, 24 of those people were arrested for malicious damage to property and public violence, and they were detained at the SAP Ivory Park SAPS, where they appeared in court, the Tembisa Magistrate Court, on Thursday, the 26th. I wouldn't know exactly as to what motivated the group of protesters to come here and occupy the buildings. But as you can see yourself, some of the buildings have already been occupied. The mere fact that we haven't had any incidents with regard to as far as their occupation of this is concerned means that the occupants who are already here have every right of being here. Otherwise, there would not have been any reason for any people to come here as a group and allocate themselves unit.
Well, I must have visited about 30. And the impact is frustration and anger. Because people are watching across the road. They live in absolute squalor. If you take Extension 31 in Alex, there's an empty project which is standing there that has been left half empty. And the residents across the road live 15 to 20 in a room, no insufficient sanitation, insufficient electricity, and they look across the road and they say, well, why can't I move in there? And if they do move in there, then they get removed. And if you ask the province, and particularly the Department of Housing, what is going on with that project, the answer is we're busy looking for another contractor. We have to get another bid to complete it. In the meantime, the bricks, the windows frames are being stolen. The whole place is becoming, it's being demolished by vandalism, and we're actually going backwards.
I think it would be prudent to address it in the different circumstances in which they are. Different projects, for instance, there are projects that are done by us as a province, where when they are completed, we have to manage the allocation process. But there are also projects that are done by municipalities or the metros, in which case we need to work with them in their allocations. So often it depends who has the authority, the final say, when the work is finally commissioned for people to move in. Is it the province, where would be advised by quality assurance that all quality issues have been addressed, but also municipalities must give consent before we move people into houses. They have to comply with bylaws. Could be the issue of electricity connection, that the physical structure is completed but it's not connected to the grid. It could be that it's not connected to water. And that's why, as a province, we have identified the biggest challenge as being lack of funding for bulk services. Because we can build houses when there are no bulk services that are going to connect those houses. You are then sitting with a problem, because you'll complete the physical structures, but you can't move people into houses where there is no electricity and there is no water. It's against bylaws.
We are living in Alexander on a shack, my friend. So we saw the place. It was sitting here maybe more than 13 years to 18 years. People that suffer, they are sleeping with the mothers and the father. You understand what I'm saying to you, my friend? And people doesn't get to, like as I'm talking to you, I never buff or right, my friend. I buff a friend of my mom.
How can you address our problems at Alilindas, my brother? How can you address the problem yami kanjani? Ungahlali nami la. Uyazi kanjani? How do you know?
It's us who took this place. No one gave us permission. It's us, all of us here.
And then what lang? Arnya ko bolela maka setjhaba se se leng mo community e leng mo. E re lebalang ka election. Ha ona motho a tlo votago. Go nwe tse disha metsi ka mo di toilet. Fela le tlo renovate pleke.
It's normally those matters are pronounced by the court. For instance, if you look at Oliver Old Bosch, the court did not make that determination that people should, because remember, the court considers how vulnerable those people are. it protects people that are vulnerable. It considers the merits. If people had a place to stay and they decided to leave that place where they were staying to come and invade, the court will say, go back to where you were staying. It's not that you are vulnerable, you know. So these matters are tested in court, and that's why we're guided by the court decisions on how we handle the matters. In a situation where the court says, give people temporary accommodation, we would do so, but that's not permanent accommodation. Because our business is to look after people who qualify, who have applied, who have approvals that we give to. People who do not qualify, you would find that some of the people who invade these properties don't even qualify. Some of them are not South Africans. Some of them earn above the threshold for qualifying. Those people cannot be catered for because they must find accommodation on their own. There's social housing where they can rent. There's the bonded properties where they can go and buy. So we are guided by court decisions. That's why before we do evictions, we apply for an eviction order, and the eviction order will state, having considered all matters, in terms of who are these people staying here, where do they come from, what are their circumstances. The court will then make a ruling that these people deserve alternative accommodation.
Singenile la kula maflet lawa se-River Park sikhathele ubutsotsi obenzeka la abafazi bethu barejwa abantwana barejwa masemsebenzini ekuseni sibanje unkunzi gcine sibona ukuthi ngcono singene la siprotecte le ndawo njengabahlali bala kusanabugebengu obusazoyenzeka la e-River Park.
That their lives are not improved. And there are many of those. If you take just a small example in Alex, there must be 5 or 6 properties that exist on that basis where you have finished projects or almost finished projects that there's no allocation, no one knows who's going to move in, and you don't know why the processes aren't being finished. And when you pose the question, there's a half-hearted reply that they're busy with the process. Now that doesn't provide answers, and it leaves so many of our residents frustrated and without a roof over their heads. That River Park Flats has now become a problem. The reason it's become a problem is that it stood empty for 7 years. For the last 3 years, there's been security provided by the province, but now that security has been withdrawn, so people are starting to occupy. And as you know, if they occupy for a minimum period of time, they then are determined to be residents, and you cannot remove them unless you find alternative accommodation. Now that puts huge pressure again on the ability to house so many of our residents. And as I mentioned, those million people, it was at 400,000 in 1994, it's now more than doubled. And there is no plan put forward by the provincial administration to deal with it. And when you push them on the subject, and we have a new MEC, and he's taken over a Chalice sword, when you put the question to him, his argument is, well, you know, we took over a bad situation. We come from a checkered past. That's fine, and we accept that, and we accept the negative effects of apartheid and what it did. But we still need to have a government that knows what it's doing, that's got a 5-year plan, that's got a 10-year plan, that's able to say to our residents, if you hang on, this is what we have for you. If you live close to that particular unfinished project, we will ensure that you're on the list. And wait a year, but you will get it. No one knows where they're going to be moved to, when they're going to be moved to.
We will try and address all the issues as I've stated, whether it's the issues of areas that were built for hostel dwellers to find alternatives, and once we find alternatives, we'll then open up these projects for people who can afford in terms of rental. But also where there is a requirement to complete a project, where a project is 90% complete, where we still need water, we need electricity, we'll do so. For instance, we had a problem in El Mapias, where a project was not occupied for some time because the local substation was burnt during a protest. So you could not connect to those houses. And we then had to wait for more money to be secured by the metro to help build a substation to connect those houses. With a similar problem in Princess Plot, where houses were completed, but we needed to connect power from the grid to the houses. It required money which the city had not budgeted for, and we could not allow people to move in where there was no running water and no electricity. So we will be having summits. The MEC has asked us to convene summits throughout the province where we'll talk to our stakeholders, and the idea is to communicate these challenges so that they understand that when the building stands empty, it's not because we don't want to allocate it. It is because there might be a number of challenges that we are in the process of addressing.
How could I live in a bachelor with my family? How could I live? Olani said so we're gonna take this place. It's a family. For us. I cannot live in a bachelor with a family.
As far as I'm concerned, I've heard by the rumors saying the people who live inside the hostel thought it was the place for them to live for free. So the problem, it was money. So they thought the place is the place that is built for them to live for free. So the government, when it told them that this place that they built for them is the place that they will pop out money because it is a nicely built place and it is flats. So everybody has to pay, my man. I understand that us as humans, okay, some of us, we do not work, you see. Okay, the government will build the properties that let us as poor people to live at. We cannot afford, okay, I understand the places like this if you are not working. But I do not feel happy for me to see the place that was built nicely, having stoves, having glasses, having roofs, having everything that a human needs to live in. And it was a sanctified place for us to live. But now, it breaks my heart that I see the place like this.
We will urge communities to work with us to ensure that let them not prolong the delay of those that are deserving, who have applied, who have approvals, who should be moving into these houses. Because some of them who move in these houses may be our own beneficiaries, some of them may not be. However, we believe that we can stem this tide of illegal invasions if we work together with communities, because in any way we're serving those communities. The challenges that we experience them in the process of serving communities. When we build these houses, we build them for communities. Ultimately, there is someone who has been told that you'll be moving into this project when it's completed, and they end up losing. Remember, when people are to be given alternative accommodation, the law is not blind to the fact that there may not have been a contract. Actually, what happened is that when the issue of 48 hours came about, it was based on the fact that the law would recognize that you are lawfully staying in a place where you have to be evicted. And if you are evicted where you were staying lawfully, then alternative accommodation has to be given. But if you violate existing legislation, the law often doesn't protect you.
Well, the problem is you can't allow criminality, you can't allow people to take the law into their own hands. But pressure must be put on government, on the provincial government, to give a plan of what they're going to be doing with all these projects. Are they going to be finishing them? Who is going to be moving into them? When will they be done? What kind of rollout process will there be? Will there be implementation? Because a lot of the policies are good on paper, but they're not being implemented. And so people are becoming frustrated, and they do not understand why these promises are being made and they're not being implemented.
This building is here for such a long time, 18 years and above. It's been a long time looking this place, staying like this. Because we are staying here, we always look in this place, we say, you know what, this is a better place for us to stay. We're just looking at it so we can take it, then government must fix it for us because we need a proper place to stay. We can't stay in a shack for such a long time.
Because it's been long, we go to, like, all offices, we were there. So right now we say that like they're playing hide and seek to us. So enough is enough. And if they don't take this matter seriously, we are here to stay.
But at this point, it's not proper because there's no windows in these places, there's no doors, there's no sanitation, there's no water, there's no electricity. There's too many lots of things has to be done here. I'm talking about toilets. I've already mentioned that, as I said, sanitation. So the thing is, we need the government to work for us, the government to stand for us, to come and work for us. We cannot just vote for nothing.
We are here to stay. We are born here. We are going to die here. This land belongs to people who are here, not outsiders. People from America.
We're removing them, unfortunately, because we can't be a lame duck government that allows illegal activity to take place and we can't deal with it. In Olivenhout-Bosch, we started with the evictions, and you would know that in Vleehof, the city of Joburg started with the evictions of people that had occupied those. In Alexandra, we are busy at the moment planning for evictions so that the beneficiaries should move in. In Clayville, they were moved out. So wherever these invasions happened, we do move people out. If it means us going to the court to get an eviction order, we do so. And we stick to the eviction order. Because with Bukabela, at least we do have an eviction order. With the River Park, we're working on getting an eviction order. We will remove those people. We'll force them out.
And their money?
We will force them out. We did not ask them to put their money in it. We'll force them out.